Good morning, everybody. I'm going to be with you in just a moment. We are building our audience on this Sunday morning, awaiting Marco's arrival tomorrow, and anxiously watching Laura as it's going to be heading into the Gulf of Mexico by early in the week. Looks like we're getting the whole gang together here. Marie, good to see you again. Paulette and Shriever, Kimberly and Marrero checking in. And there's Jamie and Biloxi. Natalie Dupuy has just checked in. Dottie, good morning to you. We've already seen a little bit of rain this morning in parts of the area. Those just some of the moisture out ahead of Marco beginning to get close to us. Yes, Wanda, a little humor never hurts, right? Especially with the kind of year we're all having. And Donna is in Laplace. And Diane, you're welcome. Diane Gagliano. Good morning, Kent. How do I look? Kent's my dentist. All right. With that being said, let's get straight to it. And of course, the biggest concern for us this morning is what is going on with Marco. And here's the latest satellite picture of Marco. And there's quite an explosion of thunderstorms. This is very close to being a hurricane, according to the hurricane hunters. It's right on the edge. And that's kind of been the forecast all along, that this could become a Category 1 hurricane. But the point to remember is if we get, let's say, a 70-mile-per-hour storm at the coast versus a 75 or 80-mile-per-hour hurricane, it's not going to really be changing the kind of impacts that we're expecting across the area over the next 24 to 48 hours. So unless Marco overperforms even more than that, which we don't see happening right now, but we have to watch for, then basically what we've been saying is what we're going to expect. Here's the 10 o'clock advisory. This just coming out within the hour, 300 miles south-southeast of the mouth of the river, and the pressure 993. Generally, when you get below 990, you're in the area where you could have hurricane force winds, so we're close to that with a 70-mile-per-hour storm, and the movement virtually unchanged just west of due north at around 14 miles per hour. There's the track, the forecast making it a hurricane later today and overnight, and tomorrow morning it looks like the center will be just off the mouth of the river as it continues moving to the north-northwest, crossing through our area during the day tomorrow. So the worst of the weather during the day tomorrow into tomorrow night. Even as Marco is weakening on Tuesday morning, there could still be some heavy rain bands that are affecting our area and that are lagging behind. And obviously with this kind of a track, unfortunately, our southeast winds are going to continue to keep tide levels elevated. And they're probably going to stay that way as Laura begins to approach from the south and east later on Tuesday into Wednesday. Now, here are the wind warnings that we have in effect. Remember, we have different warnings for storm surge, and we're going to talk about those, but these are the warnings for wind. We have hurricane warnings for the coastal parishes. That does include Hancock County. Around Lake Pontchartrain, we have a tropical storm warning. Now, Marco is a very small storm. We're going to kind of give you an idea what the size of the wind field is in a minute. But because it's so small, I really don't expect sustained hurricane force winds over a wide area. And if it kind of comes up to the coast and turns to the left like that, then those winds would largely be confined to right at the coastal areas. All right, now here's our probabilistic wind forecast, and you guys have seen this over the years. This one is the chance of winds 39 miles per hour or greater, or tropical storm force winds between now and Tuesday morning. Notice the highest numbers are at the coast, and then they decrease to the north and west, because the thinking is not only is the wind field small, but the storm will be weakening as it pushes inland, and so the chances for getting those sustained winds will decrease the farther inland you are. I mean, even our number at around 60-something% in the New Orleans area, or 52% in Covington, isn't that high considering that we are going to have a landfall in 24 hours. So the best bet is going to be at the coast. I would say, though, definitely tropical storm force wind gust. We're likely going to experience that all over southeast Louisiana and with some of those stronger squalls that might come through. All right, when is the most likely arrival time for tropical storm force winds? This is a pretty good graphic to show. In most situations, it gets a little tricky on a storm like Marco because the wind field is so small. But that is the tropical storm force winds in yellow, and that little red dot that you see there, that is where there could be hurricane force winds in the very northeast corner of wherever the center crosses the coast. But we're going to basically stop it here at tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. to show you that tropical storm force winds, sustained winds, will be reaching the mouth of the river, and then these winds will spread across the rest of the area during the day on Monday. Flooding, of course, that's going to be a possibility. The Weather Service, they may refine this flood watch later on today. It's not in effect for the North Shore, and that's largely due to track. We probably are going to need a flood watch for the Mississippi Gulf Coast, or at least for southern Tangipahoa and St. Tammany parishes, but we'll see what they say later on today. Here is the rain potential, and I don't really like showing rain maps that much before landfalling storms because, I mean, you get under one band and then somebody has 6-10 inches of rain just like this. But this is kind of giving you a flavor of what's going to happen. The white line, that's the center line as it stands now, the track from the National Hurricane Center. And so along and east of that track, that's where we think the best chance for the heaviest rains will be. And that really includes, most of the Fox 8 viewing area. And so we have the purples and the reds. This is 2 to 5 inches of rain. Somebody's going to end up with more than that. And obviously that is going to cause some flooding problems in some locations as we go throughout the day tomorrow into early Tuesday morning. Okay, what about storm surge? The storm surge numbers have been increased just a little bit, but not too different from what we've been showing you on Viper for the past 24 hours. Both sides of the river now, 4 to 6 feet of total surge. That's going to be the storm tide. And also for the Mississippi Gulf Coast, for Hancock and Harrison County, 4 to 6 feet there. Tide levels are expected to be 2 to 4 feet for Lake Pontchartrain, and particularly the highest levels are probably going to be here in the western side of the lake just because of this persistent east wind, and I don't know if we're going to really slosh back to the west anytime soon. So they'll definitely be highest over here in the west and the southwest corner. We'll have to watch here for St. John Parish and also St. Charles Parish as well. Is the storm going to get any stronger? Let's look at that. Let's look at some of the comments too. Missy says she's more concerned about Laura. We're going to talk about Laura, and there's reason to be concerned about Laura, but there's some good news this morning. At least the trend is our friend, but not necessarily set in stone. The other thing is we still got to watch Marco, guys, the next 12 to 24 hours. I mean, it's forecasted to be a hurricane, and even though people say, oh, it's just a Category 1, how many times have we seen that movie, all right, where we've had tropical storms do tremendous damage across the area? So we have a dangerous storm coming. I know a lot of people are focused on the Laura aspect, but gosh, I mean, this thing, there it is, right there in the Gulf of Mexico, staring us in the eye. And Marco is aimed at us. It's unclear where Laura's going at this point in time. At any rate, here is that big dip over Texas. This is beginning to back to the west, and that means some of those unfavorable winds are beginning to move out of the Gulf along with Marco. And so Marco, we can kind of see the wind, the clouds blowing west to east there in the northern Gulf. That's indicating that wind shear that it's running into, and that's likely going to keep the storm from getting a lot stronger than it is. If it gets a brief moment, though, where those winds relax, I am watching that things could get a lot stronger. Not a lot stronger, but somewhat stronger before it reaches the coast. So here it is tomorrow on our wind shear map, and you can see these unfavorable winds are going to be right up against the coast. That's why we think the storm is really going to fall apart pretty quickly once it gets here. But we'll still have the moisture to contend with, and we'll still have the strong onshore winds that could cause the tidal flooding. But basically, the storm is running into this belt of winds, and that's not good for it. If you were watching me last night on Fox 8 News at 9 and 10, we were taking a look at the conditions for Laura. Now, here's Tuesday. So if we look up here, let me go up here on my, there's Tuesday. Conditions are different, all right? In fact, look at this. There's hardly any wind shear showing up there in the middle of the Gulf. And when you get a situation like that, you can really get a storm ramping up. And that certainly is going to be a consideration over the next few days, as Laura is going to be moving across super hot Gulf water and low wind shear. And some people were like, well, hey, if Laura goes across the track where Marco was, is Marco going to churn up a lot of cool water? I don't know about that. There'll be a little bit of a wake, but Marco is a pretty small storm, and it's been moving at a pretty good clip. The Gulf is super warm and deep, and it's going to have a lot of storm energy besides that little narrow pathway that Marco took right before it. All right, let's get over to Laura now, and here is the satellite picture on it. One thing that's happened is, you see all those pinks in there? They've kind of disappeared. Those are the really tall, intense thunderstorms, and it looks like the mountains of Haiti and the Dominican Republic taking a little bit of a toll on Laura's circulation, but overall, the structure of the storm, the outflow, is looking rather circular, and that's telling us that once Laura gets back out over the water, if it remains in this kind of shape, it's going to have a pretty good chance of sticking together. Technically, the circulation is just out back over the Caribbean, but almost all of the circulation is being disrupted by these mountains over Haiti and the Dominican Republic. So here is the 10 o'clock advisory. No change, 50-mile-per-hour winds just northwest of Port-au-Prince, still moving pretty quickly to the west-northwest at 21 miles per hour. And so the whole thing about Laura is, what is this thing going to look like on the other side of Cuba? Now, the track is very narrow. All the model guidance agrees it's going to skim right across Cuba. Now, we're going to talk a minute about the models, about if the storm emerges here or emerges north of Cuba, which is looking less and less likely, and what that will mean for us. But tomorrow morning, not much change in the intensity because it's going to be going over mostly land for the next 24 hours. But here it goes out into the Gulf on Tuesday morning, beginning to strengthen. And then as we go into Wednesday morning, it's a hurricane. And finally, Thursday morning, landfall. They now place it a Category 2 at landfall at 100 miles per hour. Now, what do we take from this picture here? You say, look at that, David. We're not in the cone anymore. We don't have to worry about anything. This is, how fortunate are we? It's shifting to the west, and oh no, what about Houston and Lake Charles and Lafayette? Now listen, we say it all the time, and I know you guys know this, but this is not where the storm is going. The storm might be on this side of the cone. It might be over here. It might be down here. It might be over there. This is our best estimate in 4 to 5 days of where we think the center of the storm is going to be, but the impacts are going to extend well beyond that. That means if the storm is tracking into the Atchafalaya Bay, we're going to have a hurricane in coastal Louisiana, and we're going to have storm surge in Lake Pontchartrain, and we could have flooding and all kinds of things. So just because we're not, quote, in the cone, or most of us aren't, it kind of cuts through Terrebonne Parish. This does not let us off the hook whatsoever as far as it comes to Laura. And we're going to have to watch this intensity forecast from the Hurricane Center because, like I mentioned, the conditions could be quite favorable. And with a forecast of a strong Category 2 storm, we have to anticipate that possibly Laura could get as strong as a Category 3. Now, here's why there is some good news this morning. If we look at some of the computer modeling, this high pressure area is continuing to show itself to be a little bit stronger. Here's the current setup. The jet stream dip is moving out. We talked about that. So that's where Marco's going. Marco's going toward that dip. And then here's the big high over the Western Atlantic. So let's start to spool this out. We'll go into Monday. And then do I stop at Monday or Tuesday? I stopped it on Monday. Couldn't remember what I did. But at any rate, there's Monday. I stopped it here because there's Laura beginning to emerge off Cuba. Of course, we have the storm tomorrow, and it's going toward this weakness here, this break in the high. See, the high is stronger here, and there's a stronger high off to the north and west. So Marco's threading the needle and saying, I want to go right there. So now Laura's sitting there going, all right, well, what am I going to do? I've got Marco in front of me, and I got this high to the north. Well, Marco moves off to the north and west and weakens over Texas. And then look at the high. This high just keeps coming. And as we go into Thursday, that's landfall. The high's building deeper into southeast Louisiana and cutting off a pathway for Laura to turn sooner. And that means with this stronger high, it's going to drive it farther west into Texas or perhaps southwest Louisiana. So that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the track that you're seeing. So here are the computer models through Monday. And notice that most of the models, and this is the consensus model that the Hurricane Center oftentimes bases the center line on, and they've got it right on it this time. Most of the models bring it along and just south of the Cuban coastline. But if it's up here, and even these models, these green ones, are shifting a little bit further back to the south. But if for some reason it was supposed to emerge north of Cuba, which is looking less likely, the turn would happen sooner and would be a bigger threat for us here. So see, that's what that's indicating. That's saying this is going to come out the north side of Cuba. We'll have an earlier turn and a threat to southeast Louisiana. But the most reliable guidance this morning is saying, no, it's going to come out over or south of Cuba, and that's going to allow more time for the high to build, and the track is going to be farther to the west, and that's why the cone right now looks the way it does. The GFS ensembles, which has been on the northern side of things, you see that most of the tracks now are over Cuba. Earlier and overnight, they were a little bit farther to the north over the Florida Strait. So these are even shifting just a little bit to the south, but you can see what difference it makes with these ones that are off to the north. They're farther to the east, but even the GFS is farther east now, way farther east than the European ensembles are, which are mostly over Texas and southwest Louisiana. It'll be interesting to see what the GFS shows as we go into the afternoon hours. All right, so one more time, that is a look at Laura. That's a look at Marco. Here's a satellite picture of Marco. Right now, we've got Shelby Latino back at the station and Zach Fradella helping to keep you updated. I've got my Facebook right here. Let me take a look at something. Kelly wants to know, can the high pressure area be weaker? That's a computer model's version of what it thinks the high is going to do. And the atmosphere doesn't do what the computer model wants it to do. The computer model goes by what the atmosphere is doing, Kelly. So yes, it is possible the high could be weaker. The good news is the trend is for that high to be stronger. But until Laura gets out over the Gulf and past the interaction with Cuba, I'm not going to be comfortable saying this is going to go far enough west to where we're only going to have minor impacts. And Tara, that's right. Don't let your guard down. Melinda wants to know, okay, you want to know about Cameron and Ponchatoula. Okay, two totally different places far apart. Obviously, Ponchatoula, the thing we have to worry about the next 24 hours for you guys is rainfall, heavy rain, and then if you get some gusty winds, maybe some power outages. Although it seems like the strongest winds are going to stay mainly near the coast, but doesn't take much to get a power outage, right? We've seen that with summer storms. Cameron, of course, very vulnerable, right in the path of Laura at this time. And obviously, you're probably going to be hearing, if you have family in Cameron, you're probably going to be hearing from people out there in southwest Louisiana about evacuations, which will have to begin to take place, if not today, certainly during the day tomorrow, as we'll be within the 48-hour window. Okay. That's good. What I'm going to do is when we get off of the Facebook Live, I'll get back on there and I'll answer a few more of your questions. Of course, I'll be in this afternoon, a special edition of Fox 8 News at 5 airing today. And of course, our 9 and 10 that you guys always tune into. And I greatly appreciate it. Stay calm, stay safe. We're going to get you through this storm just like we do every single one, and we'll be okay on the backside. David Bernard signing off, and I'll see you guys a little bit later on today.